Greetings. Welcome to our podcast, CityRise. Today we have Dennis Turnipseed with us with Eyes on Me. We have been relating for several years. It's exciting what the Lord is doing through this ministry. And so, Dennis, just tell us about yourself. Tell us how Eyes on Me got started.
Sure. So for myself, I spent 28 years in the corporate world through ever-increasing management leadership roles. And one day, after a very contentious board meeting of a company that I was CEO of, God very audibly called me out and said, "Are you ready to come build my kingdom?" And I said, yes, completely surrendered to God, retired from the business world, and started to figure out what full-time ministry looked like.
Right.
A friend of mine put me in touch with this organization called Eyes on Me, which was founded in 2008 by a Christian rap artist.
All right.
His stage name is Trey 9. Everybody calls him Trey. I met Trey in the 5th Ward one night to learn more about this ministry and just fell in love with how God was using this ministry to take the gospel to some of the darkest, toughest places around Houston to ensure that the gospel is being spread in places that most people were fearful of going.
Sure. How do you do that? How do you engage? I mean, obviously it's at risk, young people, difficult stories. I live not in that area, but in a depressed area. So I rub shoulders quite a bit with some of those who feel outside of the reach of the gospel even. So how do you guys engage?
Sure. So Trey, our founder, established a program from the very beginning called Hip Hop Hope.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a Christian rap / hip hop based block party.
Yeah.
Where we come into a neighborhood and with lights and sound and lots of music and DJ and artists and crank up the music and play a genre that's very popular in our neighborhoods called rap and hip hop. And so throughout the course of an evening at a Hip Hop Hope, you would hear some Christian rap songs. You would hear a testimony or two. You would witness a gospel presentation, an altar call, games for kids to engage them and their families. Food, you have to have food,
of course,
for every event. But when we put all that together and we show up in a neighborhood, people come out.
Wow.
And that has become a great entrance strategy for Eyes on Me as we go in and serve in different communities around Houston.
Now, at the concert, 3 people, 6 people come up to you and they talk with you. You can tell they're broken, their heart's open to the Lord. What next? What are your next steps with them?
Right. So we will engage with them in a conversation that will generally include a prayer and then a gospel presentation, and then ask them if they want to profess their faith. We'll even ask if they want to get baptized, and we'll typically bring horse troughs with us to these outreach events that we'll fill with water and baptize on the spot.
Right.
Eyes on Me over the years has developed in coordination with other ministries a discipleship track, which includes a 10-week program called Disciple the Streets. And it's through Disciple the Streets that we teach people that come into our ministry for assistance actually how to share the gospel with others, how to provide somebody their identity in Christ once they have become a believer, and also what their ministry map looks like, which allows them to think about who they could share the gospel with. So we're very proactive in teaching people, including our volunteers, as well as beneficiaries of our services that are coming to Christ, how to share the gospel so that when an occasion arises at one of our outreach events, as you mentioned, that we're prepared to give a defense and share the gospel.
Wow. Again, I've been in the ministry since I was 17. So I've seen all kinds of churches. Some churches, these guys wouldn't be welcome, but some churches they would be. So do you guys partner at all with churches in the community that are open to partnering?
We always want to partner with churches in the community. However, interestingly enough, when we're going into depressed neighborhoods, there generally is a reason why that neighborhood is depressed.
Right.
And even though there might be a church on every street corner, it's an underserved, under-resourced church typically. That maybe is a church where people used to attend that lived in the community, but they moved out of that community and come back. And so the church doesn't have the resources to stay open all throughout the week to provide, local services for the community. So we will try to partner with churches inside the community, most of our church partners actually come from outside the community.
Right.
We have larger, in some cases, mega churches
Sure.
that are really looking for ways to engage their members in getting out and serving the local community.
Sure.
That's where we find a lot of our volunteer base, people that are very active with us to go into an area.
So these new converts you're discipling, is it disconnected from local church, or do you guys in any way connect with maybe like-minded church planters in that area? And when I say church, it can be a house church. I'm not talking necessarily even a building, but in that process, because I guess I would see that importance for ongoing growth, ongoing outreach.
Absolutely. What we have found over the years is there is a gap sometimes where there's a lot of local residents in a community that tell us they just can't identify with the local church.
Right, right.
And so those are the ones that we're really seeking. If we run across people in a community that are plugged into a local church, then we'll celebrate that with them.
Sure.
And let them know that we definitely support their continued involvement in that church. We're not trying to compete with a local church in the community. We're really looking for the lost that can't seem to find a good church home and offer a solution. In fact, as part of Eyes on Me's network of communities that we serve in, we've established about 17 simple, organic house churches around the city of Houston to address just that.
Yeah. Well, we were missionaries overseas for 28 years, so that's my background. And when we saw people come to faith, they generally were not welcome in the churches where we served. And so what we did was start churches. So that's
very
great.
similar model.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So our listeners, they may have heard of you, maybe they haven't, and they may be saying, "Well, how do you get connected? How can they hear about you? Where's your website presence?"
Right. So our website is www.eyesonmeinc.com. We also have a Facebook handle, an Instagram handle, also under Eyes on Me Inc.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a YouTube channel, Eyes on Me, also Hip Hop Hope Missions. So we do try to stay very much in the public domain, so people can plug in with us.
Yeah,
and then we can help deploy them if they're willing to become a volunteer alongside of us in the communities.
Sure. All right. So if a church or a partner said, "Hey, we've got a group of 6 or 10," so what would a volunteer evening look like? You mentioned concerts. Is that mainly it, or are there other outreaches?
Right. So we have very many opportunities for people to plug in. We can take anyone that is even the most introverted person to the most extroverted, our Apostle Paul types.
Sure.
The opportunities to sometimes at an outreach event help set up the event, help tear down the event, serve food. Where if somebody is very introverted and doesn't really want to talk to people that much, you can stand behind a table and put a hot dog or a piece of pizza on a plate and help serve that way. From that end of the spectrum all the way to, we also do a lot of prayer walks and outreach where we're walking through the communities, praying for people and sharing the gospel. There are Apostle Paul types. We have that opportunity to come alongside of us and get out and minister to others. And then everything in between, we have a lot of vibrant mentoring programs and discipleship programs where we need people willing to be mentors, both male and female, mentors to young teens, as well as coaches for adults, where through our discipleship programs, we also like to have people walk aside our mentees and help them think about financial matters, family matters, and career.
Yeah. Obviously, again, working in depressed areas, financing is not easy. So you're often not going to reach people who are going to be able to pour financially into your program. So what's your model? How do you fund this, what you do?
Good question. As with probably most nonprofits, we're seeking funding on a daily basis, just about every day of the year.
Right.
But we also have 2 formal planned fundraisers. One we do in the spring, one we do in the fall. And then we're always trying to connect with that next partner church that wants to deploy their people into the community. So partner churches, foundations, individuals, businesses who are stakeholders in some of the communities that we're in, to really just try and engage all the different opportunities for people to come out and serve that also might be willing to support us financially.
Sure.
But we love the model where if you can provide any time, talent, or treasure,
Right.
we'd love to have you come be a part of what we're doing.
Sure. You mentioned Trey, but I'm sure there are other, I hate the phrasing, success stories, but to people who love God stories where maybe you met a guy that was struggling. He came to a concert, as she did.
Yes.
And you've seen a transformed life. And we don't need a name, but love to recount maybe one of those stories over 3, 4, 6 years where you've seen where he started and where he is today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to say that there's a lot of great stories that have come out of the ministry that we do. One in particular that comes to mind is we had a young teenager a couple of years ago that got plugged in with us and had a very difficult family dynamic going on.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point that he was very suicidal, going through a really dark season of his life. And so several of our male mentors took him in and started mentoring him, and he started turning the corner. And then he got involved in our trade program,
Mm-hmm.
where we teach electrical, construction, plumbing, and welding,
Super.
and really started flourishing through that program. Well, one of the things that's good about ISOME is we love to put together community events that will engage our people with the community. So we
Right.
set up a service project one day where we were building a small concession stand at our soccer fields in Brookshire, Texas.
Right.
And we had this young man come out, and we actually had several men from different trade contractors come out
Right.
and start working on this concession stand with us. Well, this young man in our program and the owner of a small trade program, our trade contractor, came together, and the man saw how well this young teenager was working and actually offered him a job.
Wow.
So this kid, if you will, went from, in a really dark space and very suicidal thoughts to successfully getting a job.
Sure.
Because he showed up.
Yeah.
And through the course of time, really took in what our programs offered.
Wow. That is great. Yeah. Learning to add value gives value.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
All right. Now going into some of these places, have you ever sensed danger, opposition? Have there been places where people are like, we really don't want you here?
You know what? It's very interesting. It's not lost on me that I'm a middle-aged guy that came out of the corporate world.
Sure.
And people say, well, how can you relate to the people in the streets? But it's pretty interesting. I've walked some of the darkest streets in Houston, and I've never felt rejected or that my life was in danger or at risk. In fact, I've been very well received by people in the communities in which we serve, by people that don't look anything like me,
Sure.
don't have a background that's anything like me. And I equate it to the fact that I'm welcome because I'm not like them.
Right.
Because in the neighborhoods, the people that are just like them haven't really helped them over the years.
Right.
And so when myself or our teams of volunteers and staff go into a community and we offer something new and fresh, we bring hope to a community, I've seen people respond very well to that.
Yeah, that's neat. I pastor a multi-ethnic church, and it is interesting to see some people walking. You can see the wheels turning. Am I really welcome here? Is this my
Right.
space also? And it does take active love to do that. Well, how can our listeners pray for you? I mean, what would be, if you said, if God showed up, this should be our next step?
We love to expand the ministry,
Right.
to get into kind of that next new community that we know is hurting and
Mm-hmm.
or people are without hope. And so, one of the ways the listeners can pray for us is that God would guide our steps into where we should go next,
Right.
so that the gospel is brought to an area where it's not actively in, where people don't know Jesus, people are living without hope, to where we can go be essentially the light of Jesus and bring something to a community that's not there today.
Well, all right. Well, what should I have asked? What would you want hearers or listeners to know before we wrap up?
Man, that's a good question. That, you may not feel qualified to go out into some of the tougher neighborhoods around Houston.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel called, God will qualify you and equip you as you can go.
Mm.
And something that you might deem out of your comfort zone,
Right.
that if you will give it an give yourself an opportunity to increase your comfort zone. God's Spirit will help you in that environment. I remember the first time I went to Fifth Ward, I was scared to death.
Sure.
But after I went out there a few times and I prayed for strength and I prayed for guidance, that became my comfort zone.
Right.
And I've seen that with a lot of volunteers that have come to our organization over time, where they don't feel like I can go out and do that. I don't know how to relate.
Yeah.
But God provides a way if you make the effort.
Sure. And again, as missionaries overseas, I interact with so many people who said, I can't do that. I can't go overseas. And sometimes I would even say, find a local place.
Right.
Do that. Do that for a week. Do that for a month, every weekend or whatever. And it is amazing how God changes your comfort level. And,
That's right.
And oftentimes those are the ones that God uses in the greatest way.
Yes, sir.
Well, super.
I
Eyes
believe
on
that.
Me. Again, I would encourage you listeners, check it out online. I'm sure they'd love to give you a tour, invite you to one of their concerts if you just want to observe first. If you're ready to jump in, I'm sure Dennis would love to hear from you as well.
Absolutely.
So, it's great having you with us.
Thank you.
God bless you guys, and God bless you listeners.